Good evening. I'd like to call to order the May 19th, 2015 regular call board meeting, Fairfield County School District Board of Trustees. We welcome all, and we will go to a short executive session after this opening part. There has been appropriate public notification, I see from the document in the board docs, and there is also confirmation of a quorum with 6 of 7 here at this point. We will enter executive session upon a motion and second.
Madam Chair, make a motion we go into executive session to discuss legal contractual and employment matters.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Thank you, Pastor Jackson. Mr. Frick, Pastor Jackson have made the motion and seconded, and those in favor signify by the raising of the right hand. We'll enter executive session and return no later than 6:30. Thank you. Entertain a motion to exit executive session. No action was taken.
Madam Chair, make a motion to exit executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Pruitt. Thank you, Ms. Harrison. And all those in favor signify by raising of the right hand. 5-6. Thank you. Once again, welcome. This is the May 19th, 2015 regular scheduled board meeting, Fairfield County School District Board of Trustees. We'll move to the Pledge of Allegiance.
We all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
While we're standing, if you remain standing for a moment of silence and reflection. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the approval of the agenda as presented.
I'm Chair, make a motion we approve the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Pruitt.
I second that.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. All those in favor of the approval of the agenda signify by the raising of the right hand. Got 6 stops. Thank you. And public comment.
Madam Chair, I've received no public comment.
We'll move on to presentations and recognitions. And we appreciate the crowd here to recognize the students of the week.
Good evening.
Our Student of the Week program was established with the purpose of celebrating students for their individual academic achievements, but also for their model superior character and leadership. These students represent some of the best and brightest of Fairfield County schools. Tonight, the students will receive a trophy and a t-shirt. We will begin tonight by recognizing students from Fairfield Middle School. If Dr. Hardy, along with Dr. Green, will congratulate the following students: Javon Scott, Sheldon Johnson, and Tamisha Jones. And Sheldon was unable to attend tonight, but I wanted to share just a brief biography or bio of Sheldon, along with Javon and Tamisha, while they pose for the camera. Javon is an 8th grade student at Fairfield Middle School and has been named to the school honor roll and is a member of the STEM Early College Academy Cohort number 2, the Academics Challenge Team, and the Griffin Bowtie Club. He is the son of Bernice Scott. And Ms. Scott, if you could please stand. Tamisha is an 8th grade student with excellent behavior at school and has very good attendance. Tamisha is a member of the cheerleading squad and she enjoys making crafts and dancing. She's also a member of the Beta Club. Tamisha is the daughter of Elix and Diane Jones. If you could please stand. And Sheldon Johnson, who is absent tonight, is a 7th grade student and maintains exemplary performance for each 9-week period in his advanced classes, including pre-algebra. He also conducts himself with grip and pride by displaying good behavior and by attending school regularly. He is the son of Laura and Otis Johnson. Let's give all of the students and the parents a round of applause. Our next students of the week are from Keller Miller Elementary. And Mr. Sturgis, Assistant Principal from Keller Miller, will join the following students: Tara Johnson, Miriam Siebels, and Devon Seville, or Devin Seville.
Devin?
Taylor is a kindergarten student who was chosen as the academic student of the week because of her vibrant personality and continued academic successes. She is described as a nurturer, an avid reader, and a friend to all. Taylor is an A honor roll student, and she's a member of the Girl Scouts, sings in the youth choir, and is a praise dancer. She is the daughter of Stanley and Felicia Johnson. If you could please stand. Amirion Siebels is a third grade student at Keller Miller, and Amirion was chosen due to her remarkable academic achievements and sweet spirit. She is described by teachers and peers as energetic, helpful, and responsible. She's a member of the dance club, drama club, and the princess of the Royal Gems. Amirion participates in the Girl Scouts of America and sings in the children's choir at church. She is the daughter of Siri Holmes and Quentin Siebels. Devin Seville is a model student and consistently remains on the honor roll. He had exemplary 2013 pass scores, and Devon participates in Junior Beta Club, Marching Band, and Safety Patrol. He is also a member of the Fairfield County Recreation Football Team. He is the son of Ashley Seville. Let's give all of the students from Keller Miller a round of applause.
Good job.
Our next round of students are from Fairfield Magnet School for Math and Science. They are Trinity Sky, Sophia Unitz, and Kiara Sky. Trinity is a third grade student that is well-rounded and excels academically. She's a member of the drama club, covets, and is on the honor roll. Trinity is an excellent role model for her peers. She's an avid reader and is always seeking an opportunity to read and take reading counts tests. She enjoys gymnastics and loves to challenge herself and other students in board games and academic contests. She is the daughter of Liza Epps. Sophia Unitz is a child development 4-year-old student at Fairfield Magnet School who is very eager to learn, and she excels academically. She recently joined the kindergarten class for an hour each day to expand her learning. She's an asset to the classroom and loves to learn. She's a leader in her classroom and is a classroom helper. She is the daughter of Carlene and Anthony Unitz. Niara Sky is a kindergarten student at Fairfield Magnet, where she excels in reading, writing, math, and science, and social studies. She takes pride in her work and follows classroom and school rules. She participates in the Covets Dance program after school, and she loves to read books and draw in her spare time. She is the daughter of Liza Epps. And one student who is absent tonight, and that's Leslie Tapia, is a 6th grade student at Fairfield Magnet, and she has been accepted into the STEM Early College Academy for next school year. And since 4th grade, while enrolled at Fairfield Magnet School for Math and Science, she has made the honor roll each year. So let's join me in celebrating Fairfield Magnet School students. Our round of Student of the Week students are Giger from Giger Elementary. And Ms. Hayward will be representing Giger Elementary. And the students are Adrian McMillan and Kataya Daniels. And Kinsley Green. Adrian McMillan is a third grade student at Giger Elementary, where he's a model student. He gets along well with his peers and properly uses life skills on a daily basis. He is in Giger's Gifted and Talented program, and he is the son of Claudia Butts and Bernard McMillan. Kinsley Green, a second grade student at Giger Elementary, has been one of the monthly recipients of the Top Reader Award for having the most reading counts points. Kinsley is a model student who gets along well with peers. She has an interest in science, technology, and the arts. She enjoys outdoor activities using her iPad and reading chapter books. She is the daughter of Derek and Kenya Green. And Kataya Daniel, a fifth grade student, is also a part of the Gifted and Talented program, as well as Giger's Academic Hall of Fame, where she scored exemplary in 2 or more areas from the 2014 PASS test. Kataya was crowned Miss Giger 2014-15 and is a member of the Junior Beta Club, Chorus, and Band. She also sings in her church's youth choir, and she also dances and has an interest in science, animals, and school in general. She's the daughter of Latosha and Marcus Milton and Coralie Daniel. Let's give all the students from Giger another round of applause. Fairfield Career and Technology tonight will be recognizing Tachan Lucas, Austin Gregory, and Kiara Robertson.
It's over here.
Austin is a 10th grade student at Fairfield Career and Technology Center and has demonstrated a gift for career and technology education. He's presently pursuing his interest in 2 CAPE paths, welding and automotive technology. He's an honor roll student with a clear understanding how career and technology excellence supports his academic coursework. He's a member of the Fairfield Central High School reigning regional championship varsity soccer team and the Beta Club. He's the son of Angela Gregory and David Williams.
And that's my grandson.
And Fairfield Career and Technology also had 2 students who couldn't make it tonight. Tachan Lucas excels at horticulture and is committed to the agricultural craft and the ability to improve the world with the works of his hands. He is the son of Jonathan and Geraldine Free. And the third student from Fairfield Career and Technology Center is Kiara Robinson, a 12th grade student that is dedicated to her pursuit of a stellar health science career. As a certified nursing assistant student, she's on the path to earn the CAN certification before high school graduation. She is the daughter of Karen Gibson. Gordon Odyssey Academy would like to recognize Aaliyah Molina, Darius Wheeler, and Anna Thompson. Darius is a student in the STAR program at Gordon Odyssey Academy and has achieved academic excellence in his classwork. Darius has a natural aptitude for mathematics. He enjoys playing the drums, soccer, and baseball. He is the son of Darius Robertson and Janelle Wheeler. And the two students that could not join us tonight, Aaliyah Molina is a student at Gordon Odyssey in the STAR program. She enjoys basketball, reading, singing, and coordinating step routines. She's always respectful and focused on completing her work, and she would like to be a pediatrician. She is the daughter of Seema Tuju. Thompson, a 12th grade student at GOA, has achieved academic excellence in the third 9 weeks reporting period and consistently complies with behavior expectations. She has a pleasant disposition and displays good character. She enjoys singing, helping others, and is always kind. She aspires to become a physical therapist and will attend Coastal Carolina in the fall. She is the daughter of John and Mildred Thompson. Fairfield Elementary School would like to recognize Jaleesa Harrison, William Clack, Jordan McCall, and Materius Hemphill. Delasha Harrison, a worker with excellent grades and behavior. She's also prepared with her homework and has a great work ethic in class. She's a model student and is a member of the Junior Beta Club. She's the daughter of Katasha and Jawarin Harris. William Platt is a 4th grade student. He has wonderful grades, always helps others, and follows procedures. He is a member of the Beta Club, and he's the son of Kenneth and Donna Platt. Jordan McCall is a hardworking 3rd grade student who meets and exceeds all of the goals set before him. He exhibits life skills and lifelong guidelines in and outside the classroom. He's a great team player and likes to play basketball. He's the son of Shanta Burtick and Brandon Goldston. Monterius Hemphill is a 1st grade student at Fairfield Elementary School, where he is an excellent student. He's enthusiastic and completes every task that is put before him. As a 1st grader, he has excellent penmanship and is a great writer. He is the son of Kakaka Kokoya. Thank you. Hemphill. And Ms. Hemphill, if you could please stand. Let's give Fairfield Elementary students a round of applause. McCoy Liston. McCoy Liston School of Technology would like to recognize Ruben Mack, Kayla Harper, and Rihanna. And Brianna is a 1st grade student and is 7 years old. She always has a good attitude toward her schoolwork and tries to do her very best. She completes all of her work and is an AB honor roll student. She is friendly and respectful to everyone and is ready to help her classmates. Brianna is the daughter of Zendora Peak. A 6th grade student displays the behavior of a soaring eagle by achieving in academics and having superb behavior. He's an honor roll student and a member of the Junior Beta Club, where he also serves as a student ambassador and is a member of the Morning Noon Show production crew. He was the second runner-up in the Mr. Eagle pageant, and he's also very well-mannered and always willing to help others. He's the son of Wanda McConnell and Brenton Mack. Kyla Harper is a kindergarten student at McCoy Liston, where she's always willing to help her classmates and teachers. She likes reading, playing with her baby brother, and dancing. She's a classroom ambassador, and Kyla is the daughter of Latanya Crosby and Roderick Harper. Let's give them McCoy Liston students a round of applause. Fairfield Central High School would like to recognize Stephen Samuel, Kenneth King, Raven Tucker, and Paige Burnett. Paige is a student, of course, at Fairfield Central High School, where she's an outstanding student who is taking and has completed several honors and AP courses in the areas of science, math, social studies, and English. She's also completed the small animal care course at the Career Center and Introduction to Engineering, which is a Project Lead the Way course. She currently is ranked number 6 in the 2015 senior class and has a 4.278 GPA. She has been accepted to North Carolina State University and plans to major in animal science. She is the daughter of John and Janice Burnett. Stephen Samuel, is there a parent here representing Stephen? All right, Stephen Samuel's mom, if you can come down and accept his award. Now, Stephen is the son of Stephen Samuel and Connie Harrison. He's a senior at Fairfield Central High School, where he's an outstanding student who is currently enrolled in several challenging courses such as AP English Language and Composition. He's a member of the Beta Club, Interact Club, the Robotics Team, and the Teacher Cadet Program. He plans to attend Winter University and major in elementary ed and has applied for the Call Me Mr. program. Stephen is definitely a representative of our model because he is soaring to greatness. Please join me in congratulating. Whoops, we got one more. I was ready to finish your mouth. Kenneth King, a 12th grade student who is in honors and AP courses in the area of science, math, science and social studies, and English. Kenneth is in the Beta Club and is on the robotics team. He has accepted. He will be attending the University of South Carolina and plans to major in exercise science to become a physical therapist. Kenneth is the son of Kenneth and Tammy King. Please give a round of applause to all 9. All right, Raven Tucker. My apologies. Raven Tucker is a 10th grade student at Fairfield Central High School, where she's an outstanding student who's enrolled in honors English, science, social studies, and mathematics. She scored 26 on the ACT, which is an excellent accomplishment for a 10th grade student. Raven definitely is a representative of the school's motto because she is soaring to greatness. Raven is a Griffin who believes, achieves, and succeeds. She is involved in community service, extracurricular activities, and she is the daughter of Reuben and Lisa Tucker. Let's give all of our students and myself a round of applause.
Dr. Edwards, and especially the students and parents who came out tonight. We appreciate your attendance, and we certainly welcome being able to recognize you tonight. We'll move on to the approval of board minutes, March 2015. Thanks, sir.
Madam Chair, I make a motion.
I was going to say.
Make a motion to approve the board minutes for March 17th, 2015, and I'll add to that the April 7th meeting and the April 21st special call meeting for the budget workshop.
Thank you for that motion. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Miller. Is there any discussion or questions?
Chair, I don't have any questions, but I don't know if we can prove the minutes, but we're not doing a good job of taking our minutes, being that they are our official document. I just want to encourage us. It used to be the job of the secretary to prove the minutes before they came out. And I'm not saying the secretary should do it, but they definitely need to be proven.
Okay.
On April 7th and March 17th, I have a correction on both of those.
Okay.
We just write it and give it to her.
That'd be great. Yes, thank you. All right, with those corrections, all those in favor of the approval of those minutes for March 17th, 2015, April 7, 2015, April 21st, 2015, please signify by raising of the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Opposition? 1. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, I just want to let the record reflect that we approved the minutes, but we don't know what those corrections are that is going to be placed in minutes. So that's the reason I voted against it. Thank you.
Is it possible to see again the corrections afterwards? In the next meeting?
When they're posted, they will have corrections. We'll move to the superintendent's report.
Madam Chair, members of the board, first of all, I'd like to bring your attention to the district newsletter. Once again, Ms. Wallace has done an outstanding job highlighting all the tremendous things going on in the district. Also, we're very excited that this coming Saturday, May 23rd, we will host our second annual Hall of Fame banquet, recognizing our second class of inductees, to include Ms. Madeline March, Dr. Sonny White, Dr. Janet Mason, Mr. T.M. Cook, and Ms. Rab, posthumously, who was one of the first media specialists at McCoy High School. As a matter of fact, Mr. Clifton Hendricks told me that Ms. Rab was his media specialist. So that you know that she goes way, way back. So we're very excited to recognize those individuals on May 23rd at 7 o'clock at Fairfield Magnet School for Math and Science. Also, I tell you, I'm very excited that we had the opportunity to take the Bow Tie Club to Atlanta on April 18th. During that visit, we had a chance to visit the MLK Museum, CNN, and World of Coke. I tell you, the kids were so very excited about the opportunity to visit Atlanta. They learned so much. And I shared this story with Mr. Miller, but I had a mother to call me and told me that she had always wanted to take her son to Atlanta and never was able to, and was so appreciative that the Bow Tie Club afforded him that opportunity. Not only did he appreciate it, but she did as well. And so anytime we get the opportunity to expose our young men and help them through this transition from boyhood to manhood, we relish it. So I just wanted to report out on that. Also, I'd like to report that the elite ladies this past Saturday, May 16th, took a trip to Charlotte, North Carolina, and they visited the dance district, the Latiba Collard Green Museum. And I've never been there, but I like collard greens, so I think I know you to go. But it is primarily an African American history museum. And also they had dinner at Maggiano's, which is a very fine Italian dining restaurant. I had opportunity to speak to a couple of parents whose children are part of the Elite Ladies organization as well. So very appreciative of what these women have done to fill in the void of helping our young ladies understand that journey from young adolescents to being young ladies. And so, we will continue to help develop our young people. As I said, we're trying to develop outstanding students, but more importantly, outstanding people. And so this is part of that effort. Most of you probably had an opportunity to see Fairfield Central High School featured on WIS TV Cool School segment on May 15th, this past Friday. I received a host of texts and emails from friends of mine who were so impressed with what they saw as it related to Fairfield Central High School. So the outstanding things that are going on here continue to be recognized throughout the state of South Carolina. And I just wanted to be known that WIS contacted us. And we didn't contact WIS. They contacted us and said that they wanted to come to Fairfield County because of the outstanding things that they had witnessed going on here. So we're very excited and appreciative of that coverage. And finally, the Fairfield Magnet School for Math and Science received some very impressive news just today. But they were recognized for solving 1 million problems with First in Math. And that is a mathematics program that students have the opportunity to work on outside of the school day. And I can tell you, as a father, I've had to run my child to bed many a nights because she wanted to work on First in Math. And I guess there's a lot of problems you can have, but for a kid who wants to work on First in Math at 10 o'clock at night, that's what I guess I'll take. So for them to reach that 1 million problem threshold, that means that every student there has solved an average of 4,500 problems throughout the course of the year. And that's all I have under updates on announcement. That's not a chat.
Madam Chair, I have a question from Mr. Green. The 2 trips, the Bow Tie and the Elite Ladies, where did the funds come from that? And did we pay for the entire trip 100%?
It came out of the superintendent's account, and we paid for everything except the meals.
Madam Chair, I just want the record to again reflect, and I'm going to keep saying this until the budget get approved and I'm shown otherwise. When the Beta Club have to go, we don't pay 100% of the expense for them. And I think it's a good thing that we are exposing our students, but we should be exposing our children who are proving themselves and representing the district academically first. And I just want to go on record that I think that's an issue. And I hope that it's not going to occur again next year. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm pleased to respond to that. In reference to supporting the Beta Club, not only do we pay for travel to and from the beach, Ms. McDaniel, we also pay for the hotel stay for children who travel to the Beta Club convention. So in terms of dollars that we are committing, I would say that we are committing significant dollars, actually much more money to the Beta Club than we are to Elite Ladies and the Bow Tie Club. So in terms of us not covering the cost of the field trips as it relates to the Beta Club, I'm not familiar with how you concluded that. I think the only cost, maybe that the high school will actually kids to pay, may have been a $20 fee, but most of them travel to the Beta Club conventions for not much more than that.
Mr. Green, since you asked, I got my information from parents who called and expressed, let me finish, now listen to you talk. I got my information from parents who called and expressed concern and conversation that we've had in the board regarding the Beta Club. And I don't know how you compare the Bow Tie and Elite Ladies who you're trying to develop socially And I hope you have students in there who do need the development socially to the students who are representing the district academically. They're not going for fun. They're going because they're competing so that the school district can be recognized on an academic level. Now, I'm not here to go back and forth with you. That was my statement that I wanted to be placed on record. Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Green,
Yes, ma'am.
I know also that the Beta Club is not paid at 100% for the Beta Club. As far as on their trip to the beach.
So Ms. Harvey, other than paying for their food, what other expenses were they actually paying?
I was told from that they had to pay for the part of the bus and part of their hotel.
Part of the bus and part of the hotel?
Yes, sir.
I would check into that. I'm not aware of that, Ms. Harvey, but I would surely check into that. Okay. Next, summer work hours, Madam Chair, members.
Madam Chair, I got to say something on that, right? Because that ain't what I heard. As a matter of fact, I have been going back down to the beach with the Beta Club every year. They don't pay nothing. Now, I don't know where you get that from. I'm telling you, I went down there. The principals out there, they know they didn't pay a dime. So to put that out, that's not true.
Madam Chair,
That's not
Mr.
true.
Green just stated himself.
No,
They paid-
I'm talking
But
about.
let me,
I'm
I listen to you, Mr. Miller, let me finish. Now, she recognized me to speak. Now, Mr. Green just stated himself that they paid for the food, and he stated they paid for the duties. So that is something they didn't have to pay out of their pocket.
We're talking about high school. We're not talking about.
Well, we're talking in general. We didn't say a particular school.
When they're in the elementary school, they do not pay for anything. I know I'm right, because I travel with them. See, if you're not involved, you don't know, you just hear. I know for a fact.
But you're talking about elementary school, right?
I'm talking about elementary
What
school.
about high school? You don't know.
I don't know, but I was talking about
I'm
elementary.
referring to high school, okay?
Okay, Dr. Green said he would check into it. We'll move on.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, Madam Chair, members of the board, as we have done the last 2 years, I am making a recommendation that we adjust our hours during the summer, for summer work hours where we would work Monday through Thursday, hours being from 5:30, probably from 7 until 5:30. Those hours would begin on June 8th and end on July 31st.
Madam Chair, is that an action item?
Okay.
That's one of the things.
Okay, there's no other.
It has action on there. So considered an action item. Why don't we approve it then?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion, we approve the superintendent's recommendation to reflect the summer hours he just stated.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Frick. Pastor Jackson, any questions or discussion?
Is this for the district office or for the whole school system, or who exactly are you referring to?
That's everyone.
All those in favor signify by the raising of the right hand. The superintendent's recommendation that the summer work hours go from 7 o'clock until 5 p.m. Monday through Thursday. Thank you. We've got 7.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I am making a recommendation that the district move to a mandatory direct deposit requirement for all employees. And this, we probably have about 100 employees that receive live checks currently. The rest of them are on direct deposit. And so if we were to go to this check card, for lack of a better word, the funds would be deposited faster than receiving a check. The receipt of your funds are not dependent upon the mail. Anytime we have to put checks in the mail, we are at the mercy of however the mail runs. And finally, absent employees do not have to make arrangements to receive checks. And just to give you an example of how this would work, those employees would receive a card. Once funds have been transferred, you could go to the ATM machine and take out all of your cash at one time. So it's not necessary that you use it as a debit card. And so there are really no drawbacks to utilizing this system. Again, I am recommending that we make this a requirement, as have many districts, where all of our employees are either having their funds directly deposited or utilizing this pay card system.
All right, and this is an action item?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
so we have these three to choose. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that let me see. I guess my question was, do we do all three? Or only one?
Yeah, yes, it's
That's
just
right.
one.
That's one.
Yeah, it's just one. It's just all the information telling you about the system.
So we have three different cards.
No, one card. Just one card.
The way I understand it, those other flyers are just to explain a little bit about it, and it appears that First Citizens would be the bank that we would be using to be the flow-through for these transactions.
So you're saying everyone will have to be at First Citizens Bank to, no?
Let's get a motion in a second, and we'll discuss it.
Madam Chair, for purposes of furthering discussion, I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation move to the pay cards.
Thank you, Mr. Frick.
Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. So we'll move forward with discussion. The question was, so all the employees would have to have an account at First Citizens, which you can answer that.
And so, because we bank with First Citizens, Ms. Hartman, that's why we've gone through First Citizen for the pay card system. But it's not as if you have to open up a checking account or a savings account with First Citizen. Once the funds have been transferred, you can treat it the same way you do a check. And you could just go to the teller and withdraw all of your money at one time. So it's not necessarily to open up a checking account, if that's your question.
They would have to go there and apply for something at that bank to be able to do it. No?
No.
So we would do the paperwork here at the district level.
Oh, okay, so what you're saying is you all will do it for them.
Well,
But mine's already set up to go to First Citizens, so I mean, but I don't, it's just that y'all just send my check there, so.
And so what we're talking about is very similar to,
I'm just wondering if the ones that don't go there, that's why I'm asking the question.
excuse me?
If the ones that don't bank at that bank.
So I guess what I'm saying, even if you don't bank at that bank, you don't have to. Once we give you a pay card, you could go to the teller and then just withdraw your entire check. The same way you would go to a bank and cash your check, you could go to the teller and withdraw your entire amount of your check.
So you just do it as your debit card, is what you're saying, like a debit card?
If you wanted to, you could, but you don't have to use it as a debit card. It can be a pay card where you just take all your cash out the same way you would a check.
It's the same thing as a check.
Yes.
It's a card.
It's a MasterCard that the money would actually be deposited on. So it would be, that card would be in the employee's possession on payday that morning. Then there would be funds in that bank, in that card, on a MasterCard. So they could take that to any store, any bank, anywhere, pay the co-op, whoever they wanted to pay with that card, basically. It'd be like a credit card, except that the district would be putting the funds on that card for them.
So what about the ones that are already put on automatic deposit?
Nothing would change.
They can keep that?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
my first question is, are there any fees that the district would have to pay for the employees?
For the first transaction, if I'm correct, Kevin, there's no I'll let Kevin speak to that specifically.
The employees would be entitled to one free of charge withdrawal per pay period. So each pay period, they could withdraw all their funds free of charge. That's the requirement by law. Now, there are some other free attributes to the cards for the employees, and there are some of them that which there may be a charge, but there are no fees for the district, and like I said, the employees are entitled to withdraw their funds each pay period free of charge.
And if there are any disputes regarding funds, then they have to be between the employee and the bank.
You mean that there are disputes about whether the funds have actually been transferred?
Any kind of dispute.
Well, probably what I would say to that, Ms. McDaniel, is the district would always get involved with that if we determine that funds have not been transferred appropriately. So I would look at this very similar to our procedures as it relates to direct deposit now for the 500 employees that we currently have on direct deposit. So if all of a sudden the money was not directly deposited into said account, once an employee recognized that, of course, they probably will speak directly to their bank, and if needed, would get the district involved in that process.
Not their bank, but the bank and district cards. My other question is regarding the lost cards. I thought I saw something there about a fee. Was I saying correctly? Was there a fee for lost cards? Replacement?
I'm not sure, I'd have to look, but I know there is the ability if someone loses a card for us to have spare cards and immediately recharge those cards with any funds remaining on the card.
As rent, because it is nothing that we demanded as a condition of providing the facility. As I understand it, this is something that they presented as an incentive for housing the programs. And to note, it is consistent in all the programs that they house.
So we dictated the amount that they give to us, or we just accepting whatever they're giving us, and where can I find it, where we deposit it on this document?
In terms of how much they're giving us, there is a formula. I think, for example, it ends up being somewhere around $300 to $400 a month. It varies depending on how many students attend the programs, but that money goes to those local facilities to use at their discretion in terms of in terms of financial accounting perspective. I'll let Kevin speak to that, but that's not money that comes to the district per se. That is money that can be utilized by those sites that house those programs.
Correct, but I thought we now have their information on our budget. Since their deposits are now being made at the district office.
The Boys and Girls Club?
No. The money going to the schools, the individual schools, to the activity account.
I'd have to report back to you with the exact accounting for it. I'm not sure which account, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, but we don't have the schools' pupil activity accounts as part of the financial report or the budget document?
No, because it's not in the general fund. Their pupil activity is not in the general fund.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Robinson, were you able to, you were going to get information from me for the subs and temps as far as the total amount that is paid out?
For the subs, I believe at the time of, when you asked was about 130,000, I believe.
So what you're saying is 130,000 is paid out, and we're budgeting 518,412.
I'm saying at the time that I looked at the number, that's how much we paid out.
Why are we budgeting so high above that?
Ms. Hartman, the 130,000, the number that I reported reflects the amount for Kelly services, and I think that was your request specifically. So we do have some substitutes, some temps that are not going through Kelly services. So the actual amount in total will be higher than that.
So you're saying the one that went through Kelly Miller was 130,000, and what I was looking at was 75,880. So those two together is the total?
I'm not sure which numbers you're referring to.
The figure I was looking at was, when I mentioned it, was 75,880, which was on, it was the first page as far as expenditures, and it was, shows as a number beside it, 120.
Okay,
It was the one that was 3-page document for expenses.
so your question again is?
Well, initially I was saying we were spending 75,880, and we were budgeting 518,412. And you said, and you mentioned about the Kelly services, that wasn't the total amount, and that you would get that for me.
Correct, and I was saying that the amount just for Kelly services was about 130,000, and that was for, a part of the year, but we also have to consider that not all temporary employees, not everything that fits under that account number goes through Kelly services, so the actual amount would be higher, significantly higher than 130,000.
Well, when I'm looking at the 75,880 and you add the 130, you're looking at, basically 300,000? I'm sorry, 200,000. If you add them together, just rounding it up. And we're budgeting 518,000.
And Ms. Hartman, another thing about the substitutes, the amount for substitutes in the budget is an amount that's not a static amount from year to year. It's going to fluctuate depending upon many factors. If we have just a rash of long-term illnesses, that means we're going to need higher amount for substitutes. If you have a number of teachers that are out on pregnancy, out on leave for pregnancy, that's going to result in a higher increase. So traditionally, what we budget is the same amount for substitutes year to year. And we do that because we don't want to run short in that account, and it's really hard to predict from year to year what that amount will be.
Well, it looks like I said, it's more than doubled on the amounts, figuring the amounts that I'm saying. So the other question, like I said, to me, I feel like we need to make a recommendation to lower that sum at least 100,000. And then the other is on the legal fees. We're showing is we've gone down the last couple of years, and you're looking at like $83,000, $83,547, and then we're budgeting $307,707. So that's, again, I brought that up before. I feel like we need to be lowering that. I made reference to another question in that line is the fund balance. What is our fund balance right now? And I guess at the end of this year.
As of the end of last year, it was approximately 6.7 million, I believe.
And as I stated was, if we run into a problem there, then there's always, money there to come from. Instead of using this as a slush fund, a fund to take whatever out of. So my recommendation is to lower that sum.
Yeah. Can I respond to that?
Please.
No, Ms. Hartman, I take some exception with referring to any account that we have here housed in the district as a slush fund. Because my first question would be a slush fund for whom?
Whatever you want to use it for. Look how high it is compared to what we're using.
Okay, well, who is using it as a slush fund?
Well, we use it for 2 occasions out of it. We're budgeting, we spend less than 100,000 and we're budgeting 3 times that.
So the 2 occasions, Ms. Hartman, that came to the board, it was presented to the board voted on it and approved it, were one, to approve a gift card during the holiday season for employees.
For the districts, yeah,
and to assist in sending the middle school chorus to perform down at Disney. Now, I find it hard to imagine that because two expenditures that were approved by the board can be characterized as a slush fund. Because when you use the term slush fund, that provides a connotation that people are just using these funds for these kind of extravagant, junkets or something. That we're just spending money. And so the money that is not utilized, that has been budgeted, primarily, as always, go to show up our fund balance. But I do take some exception with suggesting that somehow this is a slush fund for someone, and not a slush fund for me, and I don't think it's a slush fund for any board members and employees here. So, I think we need to be careful when we make those kinds of comments.
Well,
Also, I'd like
Is there a way-
to, I'd
is there-
like to
can I
comment,
make a
Ms. Hartman,
motion to
just
lower
just
that
for a
amount?
minute. I'd like to comment that during executive session, we were informed of a legal matter, and during that discussion, it was brought to our attention, which I'd like to reiterate, our deductible, for lack of a better word, for insurance policies, for any insurance claim is $50,000. At any point, if the board were, or the district were to be sued by a former employee, by an injured worker, whatever, then we would initially have $50,000 off the top. So often it would be, I think, irresponsible to lower a line item in the budget for which it actually provides us that opportunity. We don't need to go to a fund balance if we don't budget properly. That's what we're doing now, is budgeting properly so we have the overage to add back to the fund balance. But we have to keep in mind that we do have that insurance deductible for any suit that would happen to be filed against this district. So we need to be responsible in keeping the fund where it can be accessed.
well, I agree as far as being a little bit of, but to look at, even if you just cut it $100,000, it just seems like it's an exorbitant amount compared to what we've been spending on it. And the same thing, looking at, like I said, it looks like as far as the subs. So those two areas seem to be extremely high as far as what we're budgeting for what we're spending.
Okay, any other discussion or questions?
Madam Chair, I just want to follow up real quick on one thing that you guys just had exchange about with the legal fees. Was there any indication given to the board as to, because Mr. Green never responded to Ms. Hartman that was the reason for the amount being so high. Was there any figure given that would have given the board some indication of what the max could be if we were to settle that, or any amount that we needed to set aside if we were going to settle?
No. Okay. I'm just talking about potential lawsuits and having deductibles available.
I guess where the confusion comes, we're discussing a matter, and then we make excuses. And then we'll turn around and another matter come up. I mean, we've been bragging about legal fees and how we're doing such a great job with legal fees, but we're budgeting way ahead of what the last 5 years' expenditures show that we spent. And it just sort of kind of sends mixed messages. And of course someone is going to think it's slush, particularly when I've asked on numerous occasions for the printout from the system on what we've actually spent the money on for the last 2 years, and we're about to approve again for the superintendent's contingency fund. And for whatever reason, it's not provided to the board. And so what do you two think? But something is going on there that may not be what should be going on if we've asked and asked, I've asked and asked and asked. And it would be strange to me that nobody else cares what the money in that account is being spent on. So when you see a budget much higher than what it should be, that would be one of the reasons that would justify why you would think that it was slush.
All the items are when they're transferred, they're voted on by the board. There is no hidden agenda. There is no one, as Dr. Green said, who is benefiting or moving money around. It's all in the light of day, and it's voted on. You may not agree with it, but it's still voted on by the board.
We did not vote on
An audit firm audits this every year. We are not being cited for irregularities. So it is not slush, and I agree that that term might need to be reviewed as not being appropriate in this manner. Dr. Green?
So, Ms. McDaniel, let me say that, and I think this is my third year here. The year prior, I'm not sure what the expenditures were as it relates to legal expenses. I think it may have been somewhere around $400,000. Don't quote me there. So the reason that the budget is where it is because historically that's where it's been.
We didn't spend $400,000 the year before you came.
Well, as I said, I mean, so it wasn't as if since I've been here, we have raised the threshold for legal expenditure. It has been where it has been prior to my arrival, and I suspect for the last several years. As Ms. Reed indicated a minute ago, we have a $50,000 deductible for each claim. And so our insurance carrier requires that we cover the first $50,000 of a claim. We very easily, if we were to all of a sudden have several lawsuits and several claims filed against the district, that figure could immediately begin to rise. And finally, when you say that something may be going on, are you suggesting that me or somebody or my staff?
What I said, Mr. Green, was that it lends itself for people to think and believe that. And I stand by that. If I ask you for what some money has been spent on, and I am a member of this board, and nothing, like you said, should be a secret, then I have the right to say that if I ask you for information, you refuse to give it, then it lends itself.
I provided information.
Not from the system as I requested.
But I provided.
Not as I requested.
Okay, but not
so
as
it lends itself to me to think that something must be going on.
Well, if you think I'm stealing money, Mr. Danny, put it
I never said you were stealing.
Put it in writing.
No, you put it in writing.
Yeah.
All right, we have Mr. Harrison. Thank you.
I just have a simple request. Is it possible that when it comes to questions of finance, no matter who the questions come from, that the finance department can bring documentation or send documentation with board docs, or it be placed in the board folders for meetings, the same as we get the monthly finance report. Those particular finance questions about particular areas, the same type of reports can be printed. And I think it may clarify a lot of questions that may be lurking about the finances. If we have the documentation showing the actual numbers, and not just having to take someone's word for it. Not saying I don't trust Mr. Robinson, but in the words of Mr. Frick, trust but verify. If we go to the bank and ask them to give us a balance on our account, we just can't take their word for it. We're going to ask for documentation if there's a discrepancy to see what's gone in, what's come out. So I think my request for the board would be in the area of finance especially, but in all areas, if we could please just get systematic reports when it comes to questions of finance.
We have a motion and a second. We have had much discussion. The action item is the superintendent recommends the board approve the second reading of the fiscal year 2015-16 budget amount of $37,401,195.
Madam Chair, I have one other question before you close it out regarding the stipends for the teachers. Do we have stipends in here again this year and have we paid ones out last year that we had for the teachers or the department heads?
This is the operating budget. I'm sure it's all in there. Yeah.
They are in here, same amount?
Yes.
And
Well,
they,
That would be brought to us
Yeah,
later
I don't know
for
the
approval.
amount.
This is just the whole budget, operating
yeah,
budget.
but he would have a line item somewhere in your, Madam Chair, where he would have the money sitting, so when he brings the stipends to us, he would know where they're gonna come from. And I'm just asking,
But for the most part, Mr. McDaniel, the stipends are the same,
we are the same,
Yes.
and we paid the ones out for last year?
to my understanding.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Those in favor signify by raising the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposition? 3. Thank you. Human Resources.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For your approval this evening, item 1, certified resignations and terminations. The superintendent recommends the board approve resignations and terminations for certified staff members effective at the conclusion of the 2014-15 school term or pending suitable replacements if applicable.
Isn't there a change on one of the recommendations?
This is it.
Okay.
Madam Chairperson, I move that the board accept my request to withdraw the recommendation of employee 24, be non-renewed from employment and accept employee 24's resignation and request to withdraw the employee's previously submitted request for an evidentiary hearing based on the reasons that were provided in executive session.
Madam Chair, he moved or he recommended?
I think it's recommended.
Oh, okay.
Kind of messed up.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I will move that the board accept superintendent's request to withdraw his recommendation. Employee 24 be non-renewed from employment except employees 24's resignation and request to withdraw employees' previously submitted requests for evidentiary hearing based on the reasons that were provided in executive session.
Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Frigg. Thank you, Mr. Miller.
I would like
Those
to
in favor of the, we'll do this separately. Those in favor of the,
Madam Chair,
Ms. Hartman, we're not going to discuss
I'm not
the
going to
person.
discuss
I know,
names
so
or
we're going to
anything
vote
else,
on
but I want
it.
to put it in
We're
the
going to
record
vote on
that
that. We are
we
going to
checked on
vote. I will
30
not allow you to
teachers
speak
and-
out of order. You may
I
not
was
speak,
just-
you may not speak during personnel issues.
I'm not saying.
I will not allow it. I will not allow the statement to be heard, not speak during personnel discussion. That's 3 times, 3 times. Those in favor of the board accepting the superintendent's request to withdraw the recommendation for employee number 24 signify by raising of the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposition? 1. Abstention? 2. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I want the record to reflect that I abstained because I wasn't in executive session for that discussion. And also, I just want the record to reflect that it is an absolute disgrace how you beat on that doggone gavel over there and would not let a board member ask a question that is not an executive session item.
Okay. We will move to Exhibit 1A, certified resignations.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the certified resignation that is just amended under 1A and B.
I second it, Madam Chair.
Thank you for the motion, Mr. Frigg and Mr. Miller. Those in favor signify by raising of the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposition?
Go ahead and put it
1,
down.
2.
Voting for it.
Abstention?
For it.
I'm sorry.
First vote for the recommendation.
Well, then let's do it again. Those in favor signify by raising
Can
of
you
the
repeat
right
the motion,
hand.
Madam Chair?
Sure, if you'll go ahead.
Motion is to accept the recommendation on 1A as we just amended and 1B to accept those recommendations.
Wait a minute, you're saying the ones that we're recommending, the ones that are resigning and the ones that are being hired?
No. 1A and 1B, with the exception of 24 that we just voted on.
Okay.
All those in favor signify by the raising of the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposition? 1. Abstention? 1. Thank Thank you.
The next item is certified recommendations, where the superintendent recommends professional certified staff for 2015-16.
Madam Chair, make a motion we accept the recommendation of certified administrative resignations in 3A.
We're in 2A.
2A. I hit the wrong one, I'm sorry. 2A is what I meant. Did I say 3? I meant 2. 2A.
Say it again, because you said resignation.
Yeah. I would move that we accept the recommendations for professional certified on 2A.
I second it, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Frick and Mr. Miller. Those in favor of the recommendation that the board approve the recommendations for certified staff members, please signify by raising of the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposition? 1. Abstention? 1. Thank you.
Madam Chair, did y'all discuss the, any of these personnel items in executive session? Other than the first 1 and 2, did y'all discuss any, you entertain any questions on the rest of it?
The opportunity was given for questions.
Thank you.
Next for your approval, Madam Chair, is, and board members, certified administrative resignations and terminations, Exhibit 3A.
Madam Chair, at this time, I would move we accept the recommendation, certified administrative resignations in Exhibit 3A.
I second that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Frick and Mr. Miller. The superintendent's recommendation is that the board approve the certified administrative resignations and terminations. Those in favor signify by raising of the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposition? 1. Abstention? 1. Thank you.
Next for your approval is Exhibit 4A, where the superintendent recommends professional certified administrators for 2015-16 school year.
Madam Chair, at this time, I move that we accept certified administrative recommendations in Exhibit 4A.
Second it, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Frick. Mr. Miller, the superintendent's recommendation is that the board approve certified administrative recommendations. Those in favor signify by raising of the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposition? 1. Abstention? 1. Thank you. New certified positions.
Last item on under HR is item number 5, where the superintendent recommends the board approve new certified positions for school year 2015-16, as outlined in the exhibit.
Madam Chair, at this time, I move we accept superintendent's recommendation on 5A regarding new certified positions.
I second it, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Frick and Mr. Miller. The superintendent's recommendation is that the board approve the new certified positions for school year 15-16.
Madam Chair, you want to entertain questions on this item?
Yes, ma'am.
No names here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Are there questions or discussion?
What kind of price tag come with these positions, and where is it in the budget?
The positions are based on teacher salary schedule. These are teacher salaries, teacher positions at $190.
So they're all paid directly from the teacher salary schedule?
They will be based on the teacher salary schedule, yes.
Will they be paid on the teacher salary schedule? If the teacher salary schedule say 5 years of experience, you're a teacher, you get X number of dollars, that's how the pay is going to be calculated?
Right, based on whatever their certificate that's issued from the state, whatever years of experience that they have, and how that coincides with the teacher salary schedule. Yes.
And how did we come up with these positions based on the number of students? Was there consideration for students and how they're going to be used, or? I mean, I read what they're supposed to be doing, but I'm still a little confused as far as the justification based on the student-teacher ratio.
I'll speak to that. So we are adding a strings program, as you know, Ms. McDaniel. I felt, along with the administrative staff, it would be a good opportunity to expand our arts offering. We do offer some strings at the magnet school. However, students do not have the opportunity to expand upon that experience. So in terms of what led to our decision to offer strings, it is that we felt it would be a good idea.
Because the students are moving, and then they just move to whatever they gain at magnet school?
Yeah.
All right, good idea on that. What about the rest of them?
The other one, I think, is a instructional coach.
Technology, yes.
Technology coach. As you know, we are moving, or have moved to one-to-one technology for students in grades 3 through 12. So we have a lot more devices throughout the district, therefore having a lot more technical issues. So we need someone else to assist us in this transition. The more devices, the more support. So that's why we realized we needed an additional technology coach. And finally, an ESOL teacher. Our ESOL program needs some shoring up. We need to provide better services, if you will, to those English as a second language students. So we felt, based on our evaluation of the program, that it would be prudent to add a full-time position there.
Okay, so the strings person is going to be at the middle school?
She'll be at the middle school primarily, but our plan is to begin to transition her with at least one section at the high school as well, for those students who are interested in strings.
So we have students that's leaving the middle school going to the high school who had strings
No.
at the middle school?
No, so some students at the high school may be exposed to strings for the first time in high school.
And where's the technology person in the house? At the district office?
I think that person will be at the district office.
So all of the technology people at the district office are not going to have any, like out in the fields where most of your problems are, where the majority of the devices are?
Well, in terms of where the person is housed, I mean, I don't know if the person would have an office in the district office, but I would suspect, Ms. McDaniel, that they would spend the majority of their time in the various schools. So although they may not be housed at the middle school or at the magnet school or at the high school, I would suspect that they would spend most of their time in schools.
So that gives us how many technology people that's dedicated to working with the devices?
Well, we don't necessarily have anyone who's dedicated just to working with devices now. I mean, they provide support, but they provide support in a host of different areas. And so we aren't to the point where we can say we have people who specialize strictly on supporting devices. They have to support devices. They may have to support the network. I mean, they may have to support as it relates to apps and programs. I mean, they'll probably wear many, many different hats.
Okay. And ESOL, where is that person living?
That person will primarily be housed at the high school, I think.
And we don't have anybody in high school now?
Yes.
So we'll have 2 people at the high school?
Right now, I think we have a part-time ESOL person, and so we're going to move to a full-time ESOL person. Am I accurate there? So we're going to move from a part-time to a full-time. So the person currently is half-time ESOL, part-time Spanish, I think. But now this person will move to full-time ESOL.
And how many Hispanic students we have at high school?
Well, just to clarify, ESOL is not necessarily for Hispanic students, but it's for any second language student. But in terms of second language students across the district, I believe it's about 40 and 50.
And what's the ratio, the State Department recommended teacher-student ratio?
For ESL, I don't have that figure. I'm not aware of what the ratio is for ESL versus the number of non-English speaking students, or English where there's a second language. I'd have to look that up.
What is that?
34 children on the roster as of right now.
Yeah, she asked for the ratio,
Right. It's
the State Department ratio.
it's 60 to 1. So if we had 30 children or less, it would be 0.5, which we've had in the last couple of years, but we've had a slight increase. So we're prepared for that.
It doesn't seem to justify a full-time FTE.
They calculate by the hours and when they audit.
And Ms. Manette, let me say this. I mean, even if by regulation they said that we weren't necessarily required to provide a full-time ESOL teacher, you know, I think what we should be doing is evaluate the effectiveness of our program and determine as to whether we are meeting the needs of our ESOL students. And so, even though we are right above that threshold, based on the guidance I received from the staff who works very closely with those students, it was determined that even if we could have gotten away with a 0.5, it would be in the interest of our students to move to a full-time ESOL teacher.
Now, that does sound good, Mr. Green, but that wasn't the justification you provided when the question was initially asked. And if it's 34 students district-wide, and we're gonna have both persons stationed at the high school, I thought you said there was someone already there who's 0.5, and then you have this person coming.
What I said was...
So the total there is only gonna be 0.5, and...
1.0. It's going to be a 1.0. So it's going to be 1.0. So we had a part-time ESOL and a part-time Spanish. Now we're going to go to a full-time ESOL.
And the person who teaches Spanish is going to be that person? Or you will still have, that person will still be 0.5?
You know, that person will be a full-time Spanish, and we have a full-time ESOL.
At the high school, nobody at the elementary school?
The understanding, Mr. McDaniel, an ESOL position is to serve all second language students. So regardless of where you house, if you have a second language student who's at McCoy Liston, you have to serve that student. If it's a second language student at Giga, the ESOL teacher may be housed somewhere, but they serve all of our second language students.
And I'm also aware that the State Department says based on how many students you have at a particular site, that determines how many students you must have based on their standards. So that's why I'm just asking you a question. Not for you to just give me an answer, but there is a standard that determines how many ESOL teachers you have out at the particular sites. So unless 80% of the students are at high school, you could very well have enough students at one of the other sites that requires us to have a 0.2, 0.5, point whatever ESOL person.
I'm not familiar with that regulation, Mr. McDaniel.
Well, I'm sure some of your staff is if you communicate with them.
Well,
And that just kind of goes back to, if you bring us the information, then we don't have to ask all the questions and we sitting here trying to figure stuff out based on pieces and stuff that you said in our head if we just had the information. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions, discussion? Motion and a second. Superintendent's recommendation, the board approves of new certified positions for the school year 15-16. Those in favor signify by raising of the right hand. 6, thank you. Move on to updates and announcements. Several things that I would like to bring to note. One was, and Dr. Green announced it at the last meeting, that he had been honored, and I think not only was it his honor, but our district's honor that he was invited to speak at Midlands Tech graduation. It was at the Colonial Life Arena, and there were about 2,000 graduates. I had the privilege of watching the video. I was unable to attend, and it was an outstanding speech, Dr. Green, and it represented you as well as all of us really well, and I'd like for my personal commitment to you to say it was absolutely outstanding. If you had the opportunity to see the video, I think that anyone would be motivated by it, maybe feel like I want to go back to school and walk across the stage again. It was really outstanding, and like I said, I think it was a commendation that I would like to personally make, because it was a reflection on his character as well as our school. So thank you for that. There are a lot of upcoming events. Y'all, please chime in if I'm going to run through some quickly, and if I leave something out, May is a hectic month in the life of a school. We have, and I'm going to start from away, the distance away. June 9th is the next board meeting. It's early because of the submission of the budget to the county council, so it's a June 9th meeting. The next regular scheduled board meeting. We have the high school graduation is on the 30th. That's Saturday the 30th. That's 8:30 a.m. Is that correct? We'll be getting instructions about what time to arrive and where to park and things like that?
Yes.
Great. Okay, that's on the 30th. We have on the 26th, next Tuesday, we have the public budgets question and answer session that will be here. So if you'd like to attend that, that would be the opportunity for it. It was obviously posted in the paper, and this is public as well, but for the public to come and discuss the budget. The adult ed graduation is this Thursday. I think it's at 6 o'clock. Dr. Green mentioned the Hall of Fame gala that's at 7 o'clock on the 23rd. And the County Council has invited Thursday morning, the 21st, day after tomorrow, Dr. Green and a couple of board members, I think Pastor Jackson's going as well, will be at a meeting with the County Council. They're having a committee meeting at 9 to discuss trash pickup, and our county, our district schools are involved in having trash picked up. So we've been invited to come at 10 and talk about what the county's recommendation will be, I guess, to the whole council about picking up the trash. So we will be at that meeting on Thursday morning. Did I leave anything out?
And so what's the date
I'm sorry.
for adult ed graduation?
Adult ed graduation is the 21st. It's this Thursday at 6. Am I correct on the time, Dr. Edwards? I'm pretty sure. I got that last night in the mail yesterday.
We have a banquet tomorrow is for the sports.
The athletic banquet's tomorrow? Okay. I didn't know that one. What time is that start?
I believe it's 6 o'clock.
Okay. We can check the school calendar, the website calendar. Sure.
And retirement?
The retiree, that was the other one. That's on June the 1st. Thank you.
I noticed
The retiree luncheon, and I'm not sure about the time, 12,
Yeah,
1,
that's
whatever, but it is a luncheon on June the 1st.
I noticed in the book form here that they made reference to some of the students that that won different competitions, that they're putting them, they put them in here. Are we going to do anything else for those particular students to recognize them?
I'll speak to Mr. Dinkins, Ms. Hawkins. We will bring them to be recognized before the board, but I'll speak to Mr.
I think that's a great thing for the district. Also, I noticed one of the things on the, I guess the purchase of, says chalkboards and backboards for the new career center. I guess that's the new career center. It's under the technology for fund. The side pocket.
The local impact document under MBCon.
Right. I just was curious, as far as being chalkboards, do we use chalkboards anymore?
No, we use whiteboards.
It said chalkboard.
It says chalkboard, yeah, we don't use chalkboard.
And then I was thinking, like I said, whiteboards or medium boards, is what I was thinking. So that was a question I had on that. And then also, are you going to go over the summer programs
I think some
that was
programs,
listed under that?
some programs have been listed in side pockets.
So you're not going to go over that?
If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, Ms. Hawkins.
It looked like, and I might be incorrect, you correct me, it looked like some of them were, I guess, the students that wouldn't pass if they didn't go to the summer schools. And then the other ones that was listed was, it looked like to progress as far as the higher students. Do we not have something for the lower ones and the middle ones that could help them progress as well?
I think what you're referring to, Ms. Hawkins, of the extended learning opportunities for the kids who are part of the STEM or the College Academy.
Right.
In terms of rather we have similar opportunities, as you say, for students who are not a part of the STEM or the College Academy who may not be necessarily achieving at that level. No, we do not.
I know, I mean, for example, they had it for the, and I don't know what percentage that is of the
magnet school. There was something for them also, but it looked like, again, it was the higher ones. And I just wondered, to me, we should be, my opinion is to try to bring all of them up. Well, could we offer something to every level?
I'll speak to the administration about maybe seeing what can be developed there as well.
So Madam Chair, am I hearing that we are continuing to plan enrichment over the summer, but nothing to help the students that would help our graduation rate? Is that what I'm hearing? Did I miss something?
No.
That's not what I'm hearing. So we do have something in place for the students? And what do we have in place for them?
Depending on if there are students who still need additional credits, that'll be offered at the high school as well.
At a fee for them or gratis?
It just depends. I mean, if it's credit recovery, all of it is going to be a fee, yes. I think credit recovery is, we're charging $50 per student for credit recovery. And I don't think we're doing full summer school at the high school, but if we do, I think the fee is $300 a course.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Harrison.
And I'm glad Mr. Green brought that up. When I was matriculating through Fairfield, summer school meant you didn't do what you needed to do throughout the year. Is it possible that we could look at possibly implementing a program of full summer school? I'm not necessarily fond of the A1 program because I believe sitting down at a computer and just reading and answering questions is not education. But I think when we say summer school, it needs to be, I think our students need to realize what summer school is. And it's not coming in for 2 or 3 weeks working on a computer to make up a grade, which basically what we're saying to them is it's okay to play all year long and then come in for 3 weeks for the summer. Take a course on the computer and you got your credit. Just a suggestion. Maybe we could possibly look into, the feasibility of a full summer school program.
That was one, Madam Chair, was one of the questions I was going to state too, was what's the hours of that recovery classes versus, a school year?
What do you mean? The amount of
Class
time
they didn't pass, and then in the summer school, there's so many hours a day for approximately a month, right? What is the comparison between the two?
Well, generally you have to have at least 120 contact hours to certify credit for a county unit. As Ms. Harrison said, summer school credit recovery generally runs about 3 weeks. And so I think it may run for maybe about 4 hours a day during that 3-week period. There's no consistent amount of time that students have to attend in order to receive credit. Some students move faster than others, but this is what I would ask you to consider. When you think about, how valid any assessment is, and particularly an assessment of how a student performs. If I were a student and I earned a 68 in a course, and so this is the logic of credit recovery, do you think I need to repeat the entire course in order to master 70% of the standards? Is it necessary for me to repeat the entire course to master at least 70% of the standards? Now, some people will make the argument, and I would agree with Harrison, that I can make up the difference between that 68 and that 70 in a 3-week period versus having to repeat the entire course. And so that's why everyone is not eligible for credit recovery, but that is the logic to credit recovery. You are right. When I was a student, if you made a 69 in a course, and then you just had to do the whole course over. I don't, and so I think it's a valid argument to say, well, does a student really have to do a whole course over because it's 1 point short? And so I'm not saying that's the right answer, but that's the logic to why credit recovery is prevalent throughout the entire country, quite honestly. is because the thinking is, do you need to do a whole new 120 hours to make up the difference between that 1 or 2 points that resulted in you not receiving credit?
But you're saying 1 or 2 points, but how many of them are just 1 or 2 points?
Well, in order to qualify for credit recovery, agreed must be between the 65 and the 69, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yes, everyone that qualify. You have to have between the 65 and the 69. And so what has happened, Ms. Harrison, it's not that students are not making up those courses. Particularly block schedule gives us the opportunity to say, well, you just going to have to redo the course next year. And so if you had a 55 average, it's not that you don't have to do it again. You just have to do it the next year. And one thing that we don't discuss, but fewer and fewer districts, just because of the financial implications, are offering summer school. And fewer and fewer districts are doing it, particularly those who are on block scheduling are elected and tell students if you don't qualify for credit recovery and you fail English 1, whatever the course may be, then take it next year.
And I guess, well, I'll explain my reasoning. I think it would change the environment, the atmosphere of the students in general, where if there's a thought that I'm going to have to take this course again next year, or I'm going to have to go through 2.5 months of summer school, then they become more serious throughout the year, and we see more achievement. That's my rationale. That's the reason I made the suggestion, but it may or may not be correct. It's just that I've seen some very bright students come through the high school, and I would watch them walk the halls every day, and they get down to May 2 weeks before and don't have all their credits, and they go to A1, and I guess I'm old school, even though I'm young, and I think Mr. Jackson, who's been in this system for quite some time, can attest. There has to be some accountability, and I think it would. I just think it would change their attitude about their seriousness about their schoolwork, because I don't think any of us would disagree that one of the issues that's prevalent is that we don't, to some degree, we don't put an emphasis on education. Educators do, the board does, and I know what may or may not be happening in other districts, but Fairfield is special, and maybe we can be a little different. But that was my rationale, that it would maybe change the environment of how the students look at the value of their education. And if you put a $300 price tag on it, which of course we know many of our students would not be able to afford, it may make them a little more serious about their studies throughout the year.
Okay, let's move on to the last item on the agenda, board compensation. This is an action item, and I'll just open it for I'm sorry, we do have one other item that was, I apologize, my fault.
Madam Chair, based on a legal update we received regarding some pending litigation, I'd like to make a motion that in the matter designated with claim number 5265519-677, that we authorize legal counsel for the district to settle the matter for a contribution from the district not exceeding the amount remaining in the SIR portion of the district's insurance contract.
Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Frick. Mr. Miller, those in favor of I'll repeat that one, that motion
It would be to authorize our legal counsel to settle the matter that we discussed, or attempt to settle the matter we discussed, for a contribution not to exceed the remaining amount in our deductible, so to speak.
Right. All those in favor signify by raising of the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposition? Abstention? 2. You did? Abstention. Okay, 502. Thank you. Then we'll move to the topic of the board compensation. In the packet is the South Carolina School Board Association's page on itemizes the pay from all the districts or those that don't pay.
Madam Chair, I guess I'll start it off.
Well, Mr. Miller, why don't we make the motion and then add in, since there's a blank there, to request the local delegation to amend the local legislation modifying board compensation from $35 per meeting to blank. Is that how we want to do it? Yeah, you fill in the blank and then we can discuss. I think that would be the best protocol there.
So do I need to fill in the blank?
If you'd like, or we can just open, if you'd like to move it, yeah.
I just make the motion that we next to is that our local legislation? Look, isn't this our local legislation? To write, Madam Chair.
Coming up, modify.
Mine ain't coming out. Mine ain't coming
It's not coming up either. Modifying board compensation from $35 a meeting to. That's just a blank.
Okay, so we can talk about it and then we can fill in the blank. That would be my motion.
Okay.
Right there, let's see.
Okay. Mr. Miller has made the motion. Pastor Jackson has seconded it so that we can open discussion to request that the local delegation amend the local legislation modifying board compensation from $35 per meeting, and the discussion will result in the blank that would be filled in to whatever. Okay? Thank you. I think that works. Questions and discussions, concerns?
Well, Madam Chair,
Don't forget the mic,
oh, yes, ma'am.
please.
I got a mic. I got to get mine.
Mr. Denton can't hear us. And the camera won't pick it up. That's what
Okay.
it is.
I just wanted that we definitely didn't get it on the board for this, but everybody wants to be compensated. I say myself. I am one that just couldn't figure this out, and not to I guess we serve the same constituents as county council. You know, I think that we're the grassroots of this whole county, because I get more calls. I know we all get a lot of calls, and we always, you know, and so I when I look at county council, when I look at others that's around this county, as well as the state here, that our per diem needs to be changed. I am one that, you know, if county council can do 14, whenever it's $12.50, I put it that way, a month. I see that this board should be able to at least do $6.25 or more. I'm just that would be my my goal. Also, I just like to set this thing straight, that I think that whoever that may be chair, that it be set up the right way, because it's a lot of work coming in and meeting with Mr. Green I mean, Dr. Green, I mean, I didn't make no disrespect, Doc. And it's setting the agenda. Well, I think that whatever it is, I think it should be $100 more. That's just my opinion on it. And so, if it's 700 for the board, then it's 800 for the chair. And I think that anytime that, I didn't thought about it, anytime that the chair is not here, then the vice chair sits in that seat, and so it would go to the vice chair, you know. And if the vice chair are here, then it would go to the secretary, you know. But that particular way, that's what I think. But I am definitely proposing that we at least do half, if 625. That's my that's my motion.
Madam Chair,
Sure.
would the 625, Mr. Miller, be compensation for board meetings, mileage for whatever events, activities? So the 625 would encompass everything that we would do for that month. So we would then not submit mileage reimbursement. We would, you know, I mean, is that, I guess I want to say, is that all inclusive of everything that we would be responsible for or obligated to attend as board members for the month? That there, outside of that 625, there's no additional compensation.
Well, ma'am, I think that in this thing right here, from both of them on, it's
Okay.
no clash. Okay, I think that we're going to the schools. You know, a lot of time we have a lot of school events. Then that is nothing extra. You know, that's what so I think that all that could be a part of that 625. You know, but we do have to. We have all these different events that we're going to, and so that 625 would be included in that. That's my opinion.
Any other thoughts?
Well, Madam Chair, the only other thought I have, I mean, I appreciate the information on the other school districts. Did we also receive any information about how many times a month these boards meet, or what additional responsibilities they have, things of that nature that constitute, I guess, any justification? Did we contact any of these districts to ask Barnwell 45, you know, how did you all come up with $300 a month? I mean, have we made any contact with any of the other districts to justify how they came up with their figures, and to come up with a formula of how we need to come up with ours?
I have not, no. I'm sure that the School Board Association uses this as a survey instrument. So I don't know what further information that they have based on that. I think Mr. Miller's proposal was based on what County Council's total was. So that, I guess that would be his formula.
It's $12.50 a month. You know, and I always use the saying, I want to be a half a man. I might can't be a whole man. Let me be a half a man. You know. And so when it comes down to it, I know this touchy. I know everybody don't want to get into it because I know this, you know, and so it's very touchy because you're talking about yourself then. But I think that we're doing a good job, and I think that we, You know, and I think we're not pushing it on the rug, we're coming out front. And so it would be, if I had to make a motion, that my motion would be to do 625.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
he made the statement that we get paid for going to school events and things like that. Well, I was told that we do not, so I would like to have everybody's copy of their mileage.
Nobody does. He didn't say that.
I didn't say that.
He didn't say
I
that.
said that the 625 would cover that. You understand what
How
I'm
does it
saying?
cover that when we don't get paid for it?
Obviously, we have our representative and our senator here, and that would be who ultimately makes this decision. Of course, yeah, I note that it is now late May. Session is going to end in June. Is this something that we're anticipating for them to deal with during this legislative session or come January? Because if it's not something that would be done within the next couple of weeks, I think it would be good for us to perhaps even, I don't know that all 7 of us need to get together and talk about it, but we could probably have an ad hoc committee that could look at it and study the matter and do what Ms. Harrison was talking about. Perhaps talk to these districts, because I look at these numbers. Of course, you've got some districts that don't pay anything, and then the ones that do pay, there were about 5 or 6 that pay less than we do. The vast majority are paid, I would say, fairly well, including some that make about $10,000 a year. So to have some sense of where we belong in a category that goes from 0 to $25 a month to $10,000 a year, I would like to see if we could just kind of get a sense of where we fit in with those other districts. So I would ask for 3 people who are willing to do it, to be on a committee if the board would be okay with that. I know that would essentially be tabling this matter for right now, but unless we really expect the legislature to be able to get this done within the next couple of weeks, and they're still trying to figure out how we're going to pay for roads next year, I really think this is something that probably wouldn't happen for us before January. Wasn't really a motion, but I can make that.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to say I agree with Mr. Frick in Senator Coleman's opening statement, because he knows the constituency here in Fairfield, and he knows the opposition that we're going to meet. This absolutely cannot be fly-by-night, hand out one sheet of paper kind of deal. This is going to take some time, and I wholeheartedly agree with Mr. Frick. I'm willing to serve on a committee because this documentation, our reasoning, our detail, everything must be thorough. Senator Coleman has been in the game for quite some time, and he can see down the road what's going to happen. So I don't want the board to take a hit for something. I'm not against, compensation, but this has to be something that has to be done thoroughly and in detail. And we have to anticipate every question, and we're going to have to justify every dime. So I agree with Mr. Freed.
That said, would you like to put that in the form of a motion, and then?
Madam Chair, then I would.
Why don't we say the members of the committee at the time that in the motion, if Mr. Miller and Ms. Harrison and maybe you would serve on that committee?
I would absolutely prefer if someone else served on that committee, quite frankly.
Is there another volunteer? Because I know Mr. Miller and Ms. Harrison would be good. Anybody else want to volunteer? Or a committee of 2 is good.
First, can I, let me make a motion that we
Sure.
establish an ad hoc committee of 3 members to report back to us with their findings at some point in the near future.
I second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Frigg, Pastor Jackson. Yeah, we vote on that. We'll, those in favor of setting up a separate, an ad hoc committee in order to discover more information about board compensation, signify by raising of the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposition. 1. Abstention. So the committee members, Ms. Harrison, you'd be willing. Mr. Miller, is there another volunteer who'd like to serve? Pastor Jackson?
I don't mind serving. I thought maybe more season.
I can't. I'm too busy, unfortunately, right now. This time of year is I'm very, very busy.
I don't have a problem with serving. I'll serve.
Thank you. So we'll leave the recommendation to y'all and get back to us as soon as possible. We appreciate your willingness to serve. Thank you.
I was just going to say, I noticed in Side Pockets, there's an amended calendar. An amended 2015-16 calendar.
It was a work day that was changed to a student day or vice versa right after the Christmas holiday.
Will we not need to vote on that again since the board has voted on the previous calendar?
Also, wasn't it mentioned that, a day
Let's
was
clarify that one. Okay. January 4th serves as a full day instead of a teacher work day. It's basically it's not an additional student day.
But it's a change to what the board had already voted on.
Right. And the pleasure of the board on that one. Is there any
Madam
discussion?
Chair, without any objection, I'd ask for unanimous consent that we adopt the amended calendar.
Second.
Thank you. No objection. Thank you. Ms. Harrison. All right.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I had a question. Mr. Green, did you ever hear anything back from those folk on that glass lab learning? Did you ever communicate with those people?
No, I'm not.
You not heard anything, or they not contacted you, not contacted them?
Yeah, we made some contact, but we've not been able to set up a time when we can sit down and talk about it.
What seems to be the problem? Have you looked at it, or did it send you any information? Or?
I've looked at it briefly, but I told them we need to sit down and discuss all the specifics of the program. And so I don't know if my schedule has been the issue or their schedule, but we've not been able to schedule a time.
And do you mind sharing who you spoke with?
I'm not spoken to anyone. I mean, Ms. Brown was trying to set that up for me, my administrative assistant.
Okay, so then my final question is, can you give some insight on what's going on in Orangeburg with the issue they have down there with the testing?
I have no idea what's going on.
You know? Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Madam Chair, you made reference to when I had requested the teachers' letters, as far as all the ones that resigned in the last 2 years, that that's the board decision, not just me requesting it.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a request from the board for us to receive that information.
Okay. If you'll put that in writing, we'll entertain that on the next, at the next board meeting.
Okay?
We'll put that in writing.
Okay, and the other thing was I had asked if we could bring our calendars to set up our retreat, which had, normally we have that in January and we still haven't had it.
We've been in contact with the School Board Association, and I now have a form to fill out to request that. So I'll get on that, and we'll discuss that in June, if they get back to me by then.
So you're saying you'll fill out dates to them, is that what you're saying?
No, I'll fill out a form. I just received the form tonight. I don't know. I'll have to fill out the form.
So you don't know what's on the form?
I haven't looked at it, no.
So Madam Chair, you're saying that a decision was made that the School Board Association is going to facilitate?
I asked them if they had available dates. They sent back a form. That's all I've asked. That's where I am.
The reason I'm asking is because they're not the only people who can facilitate. So why are we not maybe discussing someone else instead of waiting on them?
But, if I found somebody else, it would be, well, why didn't you ask the School Board Association? So I'm sure it's not going to be a pleasing situation.
Well, I don't think it's supposed to be an I thing. It's a retreat for the board. So it should be a board decision, not just an I.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Got a motion? We have a second? Thank you. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Got a glitch.
Because it was Title 3. Oh, okay. A little bit more.
Oh, yeah? Yeah. Oh, yeah. How you doing? See that?
But it was 3 states, based on 3 states of that model. Was it Wisconsin, Delaware, and Arkansas, I think. Access is the oh, and
Yeah, I would like to answer to that.
Okay, let's use the microphones, please, for the recording.
I would like the response to that particular question.
Madam Chair, can I do that real quick? The third attachment's got the list of fees. It's showing a replacement card at $2.95.
So we're going to charge the employees the $2.95 for the cards, regardless of how they got lost, if we forcing them to go to this process.
Good question. If an employee loses a card, will they be responsible for paying the $2.95?
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
But we're mandating, we're forcing them. And regardless, first card, first time lost, no matter how it's lost, the employee's going to have to pay for it.
Mr. Dan, would you like to see us?
I just asked the question. Can you give me the answer to the question? Can you just answer
There's
the
a motion on
question?
the floor. If you would like for the district to cover all those cards, I'm open to that.
Mr. Green, I know what I can make motions on and what I can't. I'm just asking questions, and I respectfully request that you just answer the questions. I have the appropriate staff answer them. My final question, Madam Chair, is have we gotten any input from the employees regarding this card? Have we gotten any feedback from them regarding this going to the system?
No, we have not.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any further questions?
I'd like to suggest that maybe we check with the employees and see what their thinking is on it before we do anything.
We'll move forward on the question. I'm sorry, Ms. Harrison?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Reynolds?
it was just brought to, it's brought to my attention that during holidays, that the checks didn't get there. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure that the checks get there. This is for the employees to make sure that the money's there. We want to work with our folks. And so sometimes that check get caught up in the bank and we close. The district office close during Christmas time. And so, this was the reason that I think that this was brought, because it was brought to my attention. I got about 4 or 5 calls, and they were high. And so I think this is the reason.
Madam Chair, just so we also know that this is not a fair proof system, and just like there's situations with check getting lost, there's also going to be situations with the electronic transfers of the monies being deposited on the cards. So it's not a fair proof system.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Fripp?
Is this a contract that we're entering into that has a term that would be renewed at some point? Do we know? This is just, okay. If we didn't like it, how do we get out of it? I mean, if it just didn't work, is there some way for us to get out of it? Okay. Thank you.
All right, I think we've exhausted those questions and discussion. That there's a motion and second on the floor to accept the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the direct deposit initiative. All those in favor signify by raising of the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposition? 1. Thank you.
The reason for it is, I feel like we should check the employees.
Move on to the salary schedule.
Madam Chair, members of the board, first of all, let me say that upon my arrival, I spoke with several employees who had some concerns about our current salary schedule. They had some concerns about the variance between steps, some concerns about what steps they were placed at, some concerns about the salary range. But quite honestly, I realized that the board had just completed the salary study process, and therefore I did not pursue a recommendation at that time. On March 26, 2011, MGT Consultants presented the board's recommendation of the 1.5 of a salary of 2 different salary schedules. One had a 1.5 variance between steps, and the other had a 3% variance between steps. And so what I was able to do is to go back in board docs and pull this information out of board docs. What was ultimately adopted here in Fairfield County incorporated large components of the 1.5 option between steps with variations. So it was not exclusively what MGT recommended to the board. It was parts of what was recommended, and then parts of it I'm not quite clear as to how that was determined. For example, grades 10, 10, 10, 20, 10, 30, which are bus driver, custodian, and bus monitors, were adopted as recommended for the 1.5 option. Okay, wait, okay, I got it on now. Is that on?
Let's speak first.
Okay. Go move to the next one. That's bad. Okay, go. Okay. Yeah. All right, yeah, this is working now, okay. All right, step 20, grade 2330, which is middle school assistant principals, the recommended 1.5 between steps were adopted, but not the recommended salary range. And so I'm not quite clear how and why the board chose to deviate from what was recommended by MGT as it related to the range. As you'll see, the current salary range, based on what was adopted, was $54,785, while the recommended beginning salary based on MGT's market analysis was $66,021. And so MGT, even though I was not here, apparently evaluated our neighboring districts to look at exactly what the market dictated and made a recommendation based on that. An example of looking at why I feel that is not quite appropriate, a teacher with a master's degree in 30 years with 12 years experience in Fairfield County as it stands today earns $53,544 on a 190-day contract. If that same teacher began working as an assistant principal, because of how our system works now, they would move to a 220-day contract and begin at $54,785. So as you can see, the daily rate as a teacher would be $281.81, while the daily rate as an assistant principal would be $249.02. And so it is somewhat problematic if we expect folks to take a reduction in salary, in essence, because they move from a teacher to an assistant principal. Just to show you where we are compared to our neighbors, a middle level assistant principal with a master's degree and 6 years experience in Fairfield County earns $59,905. In Richmond School District 2 with that same degree and experience, $71,588, Richmond Lexington 5, $76,313, and Richmond School District 1, $71,945. So in terms of what the MGT recommended, it put us not necessarily at the high end of the range, but it put us somewhere in the ballpark. So currently we aren't very competitive. And I want to make note that this was a study done in 2011. And so even though I'm recommending eventually that we adopt what MGT did, recommended as presented, it still harkens back to 2011. And so that's why these districts are probably much further along as it relates to compensation in this respect. The other issue, as I studied our salary schedule, inconsistency between steps. Now, what they recommended was a 1.5 variance between steps or a 3% variance between steps. And we adopted parts of the 1.5 between steps. And then other grades, kind of unexplainably, we have a variance of 0.7%, 0.9%, 1.2%, 0.8%, 0.6%, and it's not even consistent across the board. So employees have a very difficult time of even understanding how they move along the salary schedule. And why is it that one grade has a variance of 0.7 while another grade has a variance of 0.2 and another 1.5. So I think this inconsistency needs to be resolved. An additional recommendation that I was able to find in the documentation presented by MGT, I found some documents where they presented that it may be a good idea to provide an additional $1,000 to non-instructional personnel for the obtaining of an EDS or Master's Plus 30 and a $2,000 addition for earning a doctoral degree. So that will also be a part of my ultimate recommendation. I want to talk a little bit because as I looked at the classified and salaries, in essence, the administrative salary schedule, I also want to take a look at our teacher salary schedule to see how competitive we were with our neighbors and whether we needed to make any adjustments. Now, as you look at Fairfield County as we compare to Richmond School District 2 and Richmond School District 1 and Richmond Lexington 5, whom are some of our biggest competitors as it relates to landing teachers, you'll see that we're in the ballpark at year 0, but we're a little bit behind Richmond 2 and Richmond 1, but a little ahead of Richmond Lexington 5. But that doesn't tell the whole story.
When you go and look at a comparative analysis from year 0 to year 3, you'll see that we may start out a little bit behind at year 0, but by year 3, we pay a higher salary than all 3 of those other districts. And you probably say, how does that happen? Well, and I had to spend some time to really figure it out because I was perplexed myself. Well, what Richmond 1 does is they offer a higher starting salary at year 0, but then they in essence freeze the employees for year 1, 2, and 3. Okay? What Richmond 2 does is pay a higher starting salary at year 0, but then they only give them approximately $170 increase from year 0 to year 1, and about the same thing from year 1 to year 2. So by the time we get to year 3, you'll see that the Fairfield County School District, with a teacher with 3 years experience and a bachelor's degree, exceeds our neighboring districts being Richmond 1, Richmond 2, and Richmond, Lexington 5. And I think that's a very smart thing to do, I guess, because most teachers are looking at that first year, not necessarily looking at year 3, 4, or 5. So I think we're probably going to make some recommendation to improve our competitive advantage as it relates to year 1. One thing I'm bouncing around with C&I and finance is looking at a signing bonus and maybe a retention bonus for year 1 and year 2. So we can improve our competitive position. Just looking at how we continue to progress, when we compare our teachers to teachers in our neighboring district, a teacher with 8 years experience and a bachelor's degree, we are still the highest among those 4 districts. Looking at a comparative analysis of an 8-year teacher with a master's degree, we are still the highest among those 4 districts as well. So I guess you can conclude that our teacher salary schedule needs maybe a little tweaking, particularly on those years 0 and 1. But as it relates to the salary schedule as a whole, we are very, very competitive. As it relates to our classified and administrative schedule that was recommended by MGT, even though this is not an action item today, eventually, probably by next meeting, I'm going to bring a recommendation that will include adopting the schedule that was presented by MGT with 1 or 2 modifications. One being the $1,000 pay for the EDS and the Master Plus 30 and the $2,000 for doctoral degrees. And there was one other thing I meant to bring to your attention. But it'll come back to me. But Madam Chair, that's my presentation. Are there any questions?
That was for information tonight. Are there any questions?
Madam Chair, I have a question, but I have a request that I know that Mr. Green stated clearly that the board, and I'm sure whatever was approved regarding that salary schedule, and I know there was some questions because I had some about some components of it. And I'm sure when the board approved it, they thought they were proving something that was accurate, meaning that we paid someone to put it together, and to just get a snapshot tonight doesn't totally satisfy that it's not accurate. But my request is, if Mr. Green is going to bring us a recommendation at the next meeting, is that we take some time and go through what he's bringing us, and that we get the information early enough so that we can really review it and get an understanding of what we're approving. We're not just raising our hand for someone to come back later and say they found these variances or conflicts or differences after the board has approved it. Because if this was approved in 2011 and it has these inconsistencies in it, that's 2 or 3 years that we've been working from it with those consistencies, what just now being brought to us. So we can just have that information and have a very educated, informative discussion.
And Madam Chair, Ms. McDaniel, as I understand it, and of course I was not here during that time, but as I understand it, MGT presented the schedule. So in terms of its accuracy, what MGT presented was consistent across the board. I understand that the board asked someone, Dr. Eubanks, I'm assuming was there during that time, to make some modifications to what was presented. I think had it been adopted as presented by MGT, then the pieces would kind of fit together a little bit better.
Ms. Green, as long as I've been on this board, the majority of the board goes along with the recommendations that comes from the superintendent. Now, you may have 2 or 3, but the majority of the board goes along with the recommendation that comes with the superintendent. So I doubt seriously the board would have been knowledgeable enough to raise the kind of question that you are currently bringing. And the only thing I'm asking is that we go over the information, we go over the salary schedules and what you presented to us, so that we're making an informed decision if we don't have this to double back to us later.
And let me just finish with one note, Ms. McDaniel. I wanted to be clear that although I'm bringing this before the board to implement at this point in time, it is a very good likelihood, because what I'm bringing is something that was done in 2011, that I will have to come back to the board and say, I think we are probably at a point where we may need to do an additional study. I'm not saying do that right now, but I just want to be clear. You say, well, Superintendent, we just kind of approved what you had brought in, June of 2015, and now here it is, 2 years later, you're bringing something else back to us. And so, the reason that very well could occur is because I'm just trying to bring some consistency to what was approved at this point, but I think we may be at a point where we need to revisit it to ensure that we're still in a competitive position.
Now, I'm just saying, I trust Mr. Green did his homework before he brought this to us tonight. So there should be no problem with him when he asks for us to give the administrators another $1,000 or $2,000, that he brings something that we can review in detail and make sure that we understand it.
Thank you, Madam.
You are so welcome.
I appreciate that.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I just have a request. I don't think we received that presentation. Did we receive that presentation in Board Docs? I would just like a copy of that just to review those numbers.
The whole board manager.
Right. Oh,
Everything.
And Ms. Harris, I'll be honest with you. Initially, I really didn't plan to do a PowerPoint. I thought I could kind of highlight what the concerns were, but as I started to write down my notes, I said this is going to get way too confusing, and so I put something together so you'd have a visual. So I really.
And you were not that interested.
Yeah. I felt it was going to get a little too confusing, so I decided to put some visual together. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. As a matter of professional courtesy, we have our local delegation here, and I had invited them to say a few words when we got him further in the agenda. So rather than ask them to sit through the meeting, I would ask if it's okay with the board that we suspend the agenda for this moment or move down to the board compensation topic, because that's what they're here to speak about and move forward with that, since they're taking time out of their busy schedule to be here.
You mean they don't want to stay throughout the whole meeting? That's what we're doing?
Well, they're in session right now, so I think we're just catching them on an evening that they happen to be in town. So I appreciate them coming.
Do we need a motion?
Let's do it.
Go ahead.
It doesn't seem to be an objection. I'd ask unanimous consent that we suspend the rules and allow our guests to come speak to us at this time.
Okay. Thank you. We welcome Senator Craig Coleman,
Thank y'all so much.
Representative Mary Dale Douglas.
As Mary Gail and I was sitting there talking, she says coming and watching y'all about like looking at us doing our act down in Columbus.
So we're not acting, Senator.
I want you to know, we just came from the electric cooperative meeting, and I saw your friend John Scott, and I said, John, come on, go to the school board meeting with us. And I said, you can go see Andy. He said, no, I believe I'll pass.
Oh, you got jokes.
I'm teasing you. I want to thank y'all for allowing us to come. I know that we've had several conversations about compensation, and I want y'all to know that I am, and I think I'm speaking on behalf of Mary Hill also, we're open to anything. I think the key is to find the sweet spot. I think the $35 a meeting is very low. I think you need to look at the overall compensation statewide, but I think it's absolutely critical that we provide the best education we can for our kids at the most economical way that we can for our taxpayers. And that's a sweet spot that y'all gonna have to find. And we're open. And if y'all, I know y'all gonna debate that issue later on this evening. And with all due respect, I think we gonna leave during that. But if y'all do come up with a recommendation, we would certainly request that you give us justification how you came to that amount. And so we can continue this dialogue. But again, I say, we've got a lot of good things happening in Fairfield County. And y'all have done a great job. I mean, I look at the school board now compared to the way it was 5, 6, 7 years ago, and y'all are doing very well. And I think the citizens of Fairfield County are recognizing that. But again, I will say that I want the best education as economically feasible as we can give our kids. Mary Dale?
Just to add a comment. And thank you so much for including us in this beginning of this conversation. I will tell you, it's going to meet resistance, but you know that already out there whenever the paper begins to
Not you.
So we need to do our homework and do it well, and do it in a way that really educates those folks out there that this is an issue and an item that needs to be addressed. Because and the question that I ask folks whenever they have made a comment to me about when they first read it in the paper a couple weeks ago was, how dare they? How dare they? The question that I posed to them was, would you do it for that? So the time that people have is of value. We have got to find, and I like the word sweet spot. I've never heard that before, but I think that is a good way to put it. And as you begin to talk about that, let us know where you are and bring that information to us, and again, that justification. And as we talk to folks throughout the county, that we try to bring some sensitivity to this issue. So, and I think if we do it in the right way, in a very respectful way, that I think that it will end on a positive note, and that's what we need. That's what we need. Thank you again for including us today.
Thank y'all.
Thank y'all.
Any questions? Yeah. Are y'all entertaining questions?
Yeah.
Especially for you, Mr. Senator. I'm just really curious, because when we met many hours, and there was no resistance to the board getting information to do their jobs, and we've had students graduate from this district to go to Duke, and I just learned that we're graduating in 2010 that's just got accepted to nurse practitioner, to become a nurse practitioner at USC. And a lot of good things have been going on in this district. But it's just that people, for whatever reason, have chosen to paint pictures of this district that is not necessarily what it was then, and may not be what it is now. So I'm just curious as to what really triggered you guys to think that we're deserving to be paid when we only meet once a week, once a month, and only meet about 2 hours. And we've not put nowhere near the work into knowing what's going on in the district now as we did in the past.
I don't understand, sir. What is your question?
My question is what triggered you guys, because we've had this discussion before, and you all didn't want to even discuss it. So I'm just wondering what triggered it this time.
I mean, I think too, one thing, Ms. McDaniel, one thing that I've said all along, well, recently, I think the board now is light years ahead of the way we were 10 years ago. And I think you will acknowledge that.
No, I won't.
Well, that's your opinion.
And it is.
So I differ, and that's what I think.
Okay, I just want to know what triggered it. Because I was told that you wasn't going to do it, Mr. Senator Coleman, as long as I was on the board, and now you are making recommendations. I just wanted to know.
Well, one thing, if you got a question, come to me. Don't listen to street talk.
I got it from you.
Yeah, what from me?
That senator said that we were never
Okay,
going to raise
let's move on. Y'all have another question?
No, you did not.
Please.
May I? You asked what triggered that. And I'm one, you and I have had a conversation. I am not one that's going to wallow in what happened many years ago. I'm not there. I want to address what is good for this county and in particular the school district. And what triggered this was some conversation. I'll tell you, when Mr. Denton called and he said they've had some discussion about some subsidy for the school board. How do you feel about that? Well, I mean, that was what triggered it for me. I mean, I don't know if you think there's an underlying agenda here.
Oh, no, ma'am. I just asked the question. That's all.
Okay, well, and I just want to set that straight, because there is no agenda here except that whenever that discussion started among you, then we were brought into that. So, but anyway, and then we were invited to come here tonight. So we are on level playing ground as far as I'm concerned right now about how we move forward with this as team players to do what is the right thing for this district. So that is my response to your question, and I hope that that satisfied some of that.
No, thank you, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you all
Thank
so
you.
much. We
Thank
appreciate you
you.
taking time to stop by. We'll move on to curriculum and instruction.
Good evening. The first item on the CNI is the annual updates for the district strategic plan along with the school renewal plan. And each year, these updates come to you for your approval. And the updates basically are reflective as outlined in board docs to include, we updated the current achievement and demographic data for performance goals and interim goals. And we also added achievement data from the 2013-14 school year. And we also, due to the changes in the state assessment system, we also removed references to PASS and HSAP. And so we are bringing forward the 2015-16 district strategic plan update along with the school renewal plan updates for the respective schools for your approval tonight.
Madam Chair?
You make a motion?
No, I guess, yeah, I'll make a motion to discuss it.
The recommendation is that the board approve the 15-16 district strategic plan update and the school renewal plan updates. Is that the motion?
Are you making that motion? I'm seconding it as a motion you're making. Are you not making a motion?
Not making it.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that for the purpose of discussion, we accept the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Fripp. Is there a second? Thank you, Pastor Jackson. We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion or are there questions? Ms. Harper?
Yes. She made the statement that this is brought up every year. This is the first time that this has been brought up since I've been on the school board. I've been on the school board 2.5 years. It's never been discussed.
Yes, ma'am, it has. It's discussed each year. Yes, it has. Did you look back in board docs?
Well, it's in board docs, but it's never been discussed or voted on. No, ma'am.
So I want to make that statement, I want to put that on the record.
Okay, that's not my recollection, but go ahead. What other questions are there?
Just
Why, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You sure?
Have one more question.
Ms. Hartman, go ahead.
Last time it was on board docs, it was in September. Why are we bringing it up now and not in September again? It was signed in September, that's what's on board docs.
I don't know.
Ms. Hartman, can you provide some clarification regarding what was signed in September?
The last strategic plan that was showing on board docs was September 2014, which is the only place I have seen it. That's why I said I've never seen it at this meeting. But that's where I saw that. So I was wondering why it was now all of a sudden brought up and not.
Mr. Fred?
Thank you. Just a question on page 4. It's got the list of board members who are in this. It's got Mr. Cunningham on there. Is this reflective of where we are right now, or is that just a scrivener error?
Yes, that was on the what? Website, right?
No. So.
Was that on the website? Does it give a date when it was signed? I think it has, what, 4 people signed it, superintendent, the chair.
No, I'm talking about the one that's before us right now that I believe, the one that I've got in board docs is the one we're looking at for this evening, right, for 15-16?
That's a typo that I can easily correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I brought that to your attention.
Got Bobby instead of Mr. Jackson. Any other questions or comments?
Madam Chair, one of the questions I have is with the list of people that's reflected, when we update, or we're not changing the people. Because some of these people that we have on here, the title is just not accurate.
In an effort to value the work that was placed in this document when it was initiated about 4 years ago, I did leave some of the stakeholders who were involved in the development of the strategic plan as a part of this document, because the document itself was initially developed with all of these stakeholders that were involved. And so in an effort, especially with many of the community members listed, I felt it was important to value their participation. So therefore, I left their names included in this overall stakeholder involvement document.
So one would be incorrect to think that if we're reviewing this and updating it for the upcoming year or the previous year, that we would use the same people even though they're not here and not in these current roles?
Are you speaking of specifically community members, or are you speaking of?
There's several on here, and I'm one of them.
September last year, Annie was on it.
Okay, Ms. Hartman, let's take care of this question. Let's take care of this question.
So Madam Chair, if I may respond to Ms. McDaniel's question, what we're doing is just updating the plan. We're not necessarily doing a new plan. So we'll, if assessments have changed, then we'll change in that information. So we don't necessarily go into, I think by removing the names of the people who initially developed the original plan is not the purpose of this process. It is simply to update the plan. And as you see, this plan is to be in place from 2011 to 2015, 2016. And so therefore we would not go back in and remove those individuals who were a part of developing the initial plan.
Well, you got me listed as a part of development. I wasn't a part of developing this plan.
But I wasn't here in 2011, Ms. McDaniel, so I'm not sure about that. Apparently, based on what is here, you must have had some input.
No, sir.
Maybe wisdom.
No, sir.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure about that.
Were you able to find out an answer for me as far as why it's September versus now?
Honestly, Ms. Hartman, I cannot address that question at this point, but I promise you I will research it and find out. what my instinct is telling me, in light of the advanced ed visit that we had in December, I wanted to ensure that our strategic plan was updated at that time, and most likely, we probably did additional signatures then. But again, that's what my instinct is telling me, but again, I will need to go and do some research and get your answer.
I mean, right now, we're working on budget, and all of a sudden, this is thrown in here for us to be looking at as well. I feel like, we should have complete our budget, and then.
Okay, we're talking about the strategic plan update and the school renewal plan update, so we'll focus on that. Dr. Edwards has commented that she would get that information. Is there further discussion?
Are we at any point in time, Madam Chair, going to go through this strategic plan? Because when we get it, the information, we can read it, interpret one thing, but we're not really getting information to know exactly what's in it. And I'm not sure where we are with the request to tie this to the budget. But this is a serious document, so we really should go through it so that the board is aware of what's in it. And then each year when it comes up for renewal, it's my understanding, you look at what you've done, determine whether or not you have achieved what you said you was going to achieve, or whether things are still lacking and you want to move it forward. And we're not getting that kind of information. We're just given a document just to vote on.
Well, the updates are there. And the updates to the plan were defined there in those bullet points.
So is that to say that we're not going to have a discussion as a board of any of the documents, the district, nor any of the schools?
Do you have any questions? Or we're going to vote on it as a whole, as we've just made that motion and second.
Well, I don't have a problem with us voting on it. I mean, when the vote happens, it is what it is. My concern is us being knowledgeable of what's in the documents.
I think that they're here in front of us to learn about, ask questions as needed.
So your answer is no?
I guess it is.
Like
All those in favor of the superintendent's recommendation, all those in favor of the superintendent, all those, since we do have a motion and a second, all those in favor of the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the 15-16 district strategic plan update and school renewal plan updates for all schools, please signify by the raising of the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposition? 3. Thank you. Approval of 15-16 instructional materials.
The second item is the approval of the 2015-16 instructional materials, which are the textbook selections for the upcoming school year. And included in board docs is a listing of textbooks for the adoption, up for adoption, which you have 12 textbooks that have been listed for you, that have been included, that are state adoption, along with courses for new course offerings that are indicated in board docs. And you also have 2 textbooks listed for new instructional materials for current course offerings for the upcoming school year. The textbook materials and the instructional materials were on display in our lobby beginning in March of this year, and all of the respective teachers from the schools had an opportunity to provide input as it relates to these instructional materials up for adoption. The recommendations were based upon each text includes components of instruction for content-specific standards for the indicated course. They are also aligned to our South Carolina state standards, and they also have materials designed to help support and enhance student learning. And these course listings, or these instructional materials, are listed here in board docs for your approval.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. Do we have a motion to accept the recommendation that the board approve the instructional materials for adoption for 2015-16 school year?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we adopt the approval of 2015-16 instructional materials.
Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Frigg. Mr. Miller, are there questions or discussion?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Now, you would agree that we were told that the board does not have to approve the course offerings in the district, or at least at Career Center. Am I mistaken? Weren't we told that?
That would be correct.
Then can I get an explanation as to why we would have to approve all of these different textbooks or instructional materials?
That would be board policy, but
So Mr. McDaniel, I guess I would concur in terms of the board weighing in on the various texts that have been recommended by the experts in those fields. The reason that we do it is because our policy still requires that we do such. I would question rather it is a fruitful process, but we will continue to follow through with it because it is for policy.
That we have to approve every course that's taught in the district?
No, that we approve the
textbooks.
textbook.
So we have to approve every textbook that is used in the district?
We approve the textbooks that have been adopted.
I guess I'm confused because we got Google Basics and Barber Master Hair Care 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're using State Department of Education adopted textbooks for all of these classes?
Yes.
And can I engage you, just let me know what policy that is?
I'm not familiar with policy.
You don't know what policy it is?
No.
And Dr. Ellis, don't know what policy it is?
I'm looking it up right now.
Okay. It just seemed kind of strange that we would have to prove the textbooks being used for barbering and emergency and fire management and Google Basics and multimedia, masonry.
perhaps that's the policy we need to reconsider, Dr. Green. That might be one that we need to research and reconsider. But right now, according to board policy, we do, the board does approve those. So any further discussion or questions?
Dr. Madam Chair.
Use the microphone, please.
Do we know yet, I'm sure we know some, and it could change, I'm sure, of how many students are enlisted in the different classes for the new Career Center?
We're going to stick to the adoption of instructional materials. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor of the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the instructional materials textbooks selection recommendations for adoption for the 15-16 school year signify by the raising of the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposition. 1, 2. Abstention. 1. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, I just want the record to reflect, and I would like the record to show my reason for my vote. And number one is because we were told that there was a policy that stated that we had to approve all of the textbooks, and that policy was not presented to us. And I'm just a little concerned. So, thank you.
Operations and finance.
In the board package, you have the finance report for the month of April for your review. The next item under operations and finance is the second reading of the fiscal year 2015-2016 budget. And the proposed budget is $37,401,195. It remains unchanged from the first reading of the budget and from the budget workshop that was held on the 21st of April. There is no proposed millage increase in the budget. Therefore, the superintendent's recommending that the board approve the second reading of the fiscal year 2015-16 budget in the amount of $37,401,195 with no millage increase.
Do you have questions, Madam Chair, or?
Accept the motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion we approve the budget, second reading of the budget for FY 2015-16.
Thank you, Mr. Fritz. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Questions? Mr. Daniel?
Yeah, I don't know if it was the newspaper I was reading or what, about the Girls and Boys Club and them paying us rent. Where in the budget do we have a line item for that? And I'm just trying to figure how that falls into play with our budget, because I thought 501c3 organizations didn't pay us rent.
Well, I don't, Madam Chair, Ms. McDaniel, I don't know if rent is an accurate description of what occurred. As I understand it, Boys and Girls Club provides an incentive to all sites that host their programs. And so Fairfield County School District is not unique in that respect. Of course, I was not here during the initiation of this partnership, but I think it was presented to those various schools as an incentive to house those programs, not as a requirement to have those programs. So Boys and Girls Club does contribute some financial incentive to Fairfield Magnet School that they can use in their local budget, or Gigi Elementary School that house those programs. But I would not describe